Have you had a discussion regarding asset-based long-term care with your financial planner? Hi, I'm Garrett Ray, financial planner here at the Wealth Guardians and the Ray Financial Group.
And I'm Brice Payne, and you've entered The Vault, the Wealth Guardians video series on all things pertaining to retirement planning. In this episode, we're going to talk about asset-based long-term care. We're going to compare that to traditional long-term care coverage, and then we'll define what asset-based is and how it's different. And then we'll do a real-life discussion about a Joe and Sally client and an illustration that would be created for them to see what kind of benefits they would qualify for. There's these like and subscribe buttons that hang out down below the screen there. They're always hovering there. Go ahead and click on those if you want to catch future episodes of The Vault with Doug, Garrett, and myself. And Garrett, let's go ahead and jump into this episode on long-term care.
Yeah. So, Brice, what is traditional-based long-term care? And then we'll get into asset-based long-term care.
It's a good starting point for us to understand that. So traditional long-term care, just think of car insurance. Call it use it or lose it insurance.
Yep.
You could be driving for a number of years, paid into it every month or every quarter, and you never win a car accident. And then when you finally turn in your keys, no longer buying the insurance, doesn't mean that USA or Progressive is going to give you any of your money back. Use it or lose it. So if you were never in a car accident, you don't get any of the money back.
Okay.
That's how traditional long-term care insurance works. You pay into it every month or every quarter. And if you use it, great. But if not, and you pass away peacefully and you sleep overnight, we're healthy the day before, that money's gone.
Yep.
It doesn't go to your kids. It doesn't go to your spouse, whatever. And that's what we're used to. And a lot of people don't like that concept.
Right.
One, they don't like planning for them not being healthy in the first place.
It's a tough conversation.
It is. And it's a tough conversation to have with others and with yourself as well. You might be 60 years old and have been in good health your entire life. You might think, understandably, I'm going to take the bet that I'm going to continue to be in good health until my last day. I mean, we have to go on. If you're 60 years old and never had any health problems, it's probably a reasonable assumption to make, but it's very likely not the responsible decision to make.
Yep.
So people don't like the idea of paying into that. And then if they are healthy, which is what they want to be, that money was just gone. They'd rather just take the money and invest it somewhere in a CD or something. And if they need it, great, but it's still there and it'll go to whoever their beneficiary is.
Okay.
So that's what we're all familiar with. Use it or lose it insurance. So if we start off with understanding that concept, and then we can think of asset-based long-term care insurance, which is quite different.
Okay.
You take a defined amount that you put into a policy like this. You don't pay into it every month. You can either pay it as a single premium all up front or maybe over 10 years. So let's say that you want to put $200,000 into a policy. You could put as little as $25,000 in, or you could put as much as $400,000 into a policy like this if you have the assets.
Okay.
You would either pay that all right up front. And of course, if you're taking money out of an IRA distribution, out of an IRA to fund a policy like that, that's a huge hit in one year.
Right. That's a big taxable event.
Right. So that's why they allow you to pay it out over 10 years if you wanted to.
Okay.
Instead of $200,000 up front, take $20,000 a year out of your IRA for 10 years. Now it's a much more palatable tax hit.
Sure.
What happens there is that if you never use that insurance, you pass away peacefully overnight again, you've defined who a beneficiary is for this policy. And this, we're talking about usually a joint policy. It would cover you and your spouse. And if you both passed away, maybe it's your kids who you've designated as the beneficiaries of this. They're going to inherit, if not all, a large chunk of whatever that premium was that you put into it.
Okay. So yeah, in this case, if you don't end up using the policy, either you or your spouse, you pass away, become an angel the next day, at least your loved ones and your kids or other loved ones get that as beneficiaries.
Right. It was never money that you threw away. You were just taking it and putting it into another type of account.
Okay.
It has your name on it, just like a bank account would have or a broker account would have.
Okay.
Now, the question will become, well, what kind of benefit do I get with this? If it's $25,000 or $400,000, maybe you don't have enough for $400,000 and you just want to get the most coverage that you can out of the amount of money that you do have. That's the nice thing about this is there's no ambiguity on what the benefit is going to be. If you put money into a policy like this, you're defining, I'm going to put $100,000, $200,000 in here. it's defined what that monthly benefit is going to be.
Okay. So you get that information up front before you make any commitment of a premium.
Exactly.
Yep.
We've got an illustration right here.
Okay.
And so eventually, let's say that you put $200,000, this is our illustration says here, over 10 years. So it's $20,000 a year.
Okay.
And the doctor at some point says, hey, you can no longer perform 2 of the 6 activities of daily living now. That's dressing yourself, going to the restroom by yourself, bathing yourself, cooking for yourself, being mobile around the home by yourself. And what was the other one? I didn't say using the restroom or anyway. There's 6
Control of your bladder.
Yeah,
I think it's control of your bladder
out there. And as soon as the doctor says you can't perform 2 of these 6, well, you now qualify for those defined benefits that you knew you were going to get if and when that day came.
Okay.
And maybe it's now a year later and your spouse also now qualifies for long-term. It's both.
Okay.
Great. It's a joint policy that's going to pay that benefit out to both of you for as long as you live. At least the policies that we in North Carolina like to use here for our clients, it's for as long as you live. Now, there's some policies out there will define they're only going to pay you for 5 years.
Right.
That you're on your own. Okay. The ones that we really like to use are the ones that if you're in there for cognitive reasons, your body's in good shape, but you need somebody to look after you for 20 years, that monthly benefit is never going to stop.
Okay.
So that's what an asset-based long-term care policy is. People find that a lot more acceptable, that money is not just gone if they passed away peacefully like they would have liked to think that they would. And so we've got an illustration here for, let's do Joe and Sally client. And Joe is 65 years old and Sally is 60 years old. And they want to put $200,000 into this policy, $20,000 a year for 10 years. The death benefit right off the bat is $100,000.
Okay.
So if they put $20,000 in right away, and then they both passed away, then their beneficiaries are inheriting $100,000. That benefit stays static. That death benefit stays static. So it would take them 5 years to put as much as that $100,000 into the policy.
Right.
So in that sense, it's a life insurance policy up front. That might not be its strongest point, but that is indeed what it is, right? For the first 5 years, it's a life insurance policy that pays out more than what you put into it.
Sure.
If, though, they now qualify, one of them qualifies for long-term care, that monthly benefit based on their age and how healthy they were non-smokers in the state that they lived in, that monthly benefit is $4,033 a month. So
Okay.
Joe no longer can perform 2 of the 6 activities of daily living. That insurance company is going to start writing him a check for $4,033. This is a good thing to understand. They're writing the check to Joe. It might be that their neighbor or they've got a nephew that comes over and cooks meals for him, so that and they're not charging him much or anything.
Right.
Doesn't matter. The insurance company, all they care about is that they got a letter from the doctor saying that they can't perform 2 of the 6 activities of the daily living. There's no in and out of network. There's no them saying, well, we're not going to pay you this check because you're living in this facility as opposed to this one. That doesn't matter. They're going to pay you that check and then give it straight to Joe, and then Joe can cut a check for whatever his real expenses are. And then maybe a year later, now Sally qualifies for long-term care. They're going to be writing her check for $4,033 as well.
Okay.
That's her life. Now, that eats into the death benefit. And so after a couple of years, there will no longer be a death benefit. But that's just as if they had put the money in a CD and then been taken out of the CD.
Sure. There's no CD left.
There's no CD left, right?
Yep.
Then you'd be on your own after that. This is going to keep paying you out for the rest of your life.
Yep.
And on this particular illustration, there was an inflation rider attached to the policy. So that $4,033 kept going up a little bit. That's an option that you do or do not have to put in there if you want.
Okay.
And that's the way it works. And it's a joint policy. And the nice thing, again, is that they knew what that benefit was going to be going into it before they funded it. There's no markets and whatever interest rates are doing and market value and all of that. It's a defined benefit. People find this a lot more acceptable type of policy to them. They think it works. The numbers work.
Yeah, absolutely.
More than a user or loser type of insurance.
I can certainly see the benefit of it.
And, a lot of times Garrett, I can't tell you how many clients that we've had who say, well, I plan on taking care of my spouse. If something happens to him or her, I'll take care. Well, that's great. Your heart's in the right place, of course. But if your spouse is 70 years old, maybe you're 70 or 75 years old, that might be a pretty big ask for you to be able to help someone in and out of the tub for dress themselves. And over 50% of the spouses who are taking care of their elderly spouse, they're the ones that actually go first. Because there was so much on them to take care of somebody else over 50% of the time, they're the ones that go first. And, you just don't want to put your spouse in that position. So having a policy like this can really save the relationship between you and your spouse and the relationship between you and your kids as well.
Yep. Because then, if the spouse can't take care of it, then the adult children become the primary caretaker.
What choice do they have?
Yeah.
Right.
What else are you going to do? So,
All right. So that wraps it up. That's exactly what a asset-based long-term care policy is. If you haven't had a discussion with your financial planner about that yet, give them a call, sit down and see what kind of illustration can be written for you and your spouse regarding with however much you want to put into it. All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of The Vault. I'm Brice Payne.
And I'm Garrett Ray.
And this has been The Vault. Hey, it's Brice Payne with the Wealth Guardians. Thanks for watching our weekly series, The Vault. Do you know we also have a weekly radio show where we discuss all things retirement? You can listen to the Wealth Guardians radio show live on 94.5 WPTI in the Triad on Saturday mornings. But if you missed the live broadcast, you can also catch it on our YouTube channel or find us on your favorite podcast platform each Saturday morning. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen so you can get notifications when we release new episodes. I want you to remember, good retirement plans do not create themselves. We'll talk to you soon.